NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with their proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email at contact@netsparker.com. Endgame's converged endpoint security platform is transforming security programs. Their people, processes, and technology with the most powerful endpoint protection and simplest user experience, ensuring analysts of any skill level can stop targeted attacks before information theft. Endgame unifies prevention, detection, and threat hunting to stop known and unknown attacker behaviors at scale with a single agent. For more information, visit endgame.com. Recorded Future. They help security teams make more confident decisions faster. Recorded Future's technology automates broad collection and analysis of cyber threat data and delivers the rich external context you need to understand alerts and emerging threats. With real-time threat intelligence from Recorded Future, security teams respond to threats 63% faster and find undetected threats 10 times quicker. To get started, go to recordedfuture.com/Security Weekly and sign up for the Recorded Future Cyber Data. Every day, you'll receive an email with the top results for trending technical indicators, cyber news, exploited vulnerabilities, suspicious IP addresses, and more. Subscribe today and stay ahead of cyber attacks. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly, being recorded live from Black Hat 2019 in Las Vegas. One announcement, Hacker Halted is another conference we'll be at October 10th through the 11th. EC Council is offering our listeners a $100 discount to attend the two-day conference. Use the discount code HH19SW to register at securityweekly.com/hackerhalted. It's been a lot. It's so awesome to record a show live from Las Vegas. We haven't done it in so long.
I don't think we've ever done one streamed live.
I don't think
We've
so.
done them and then recorded and released them later.
Yes. This
I
may
don't think
be
you've
our
ever
first
gone live.
streaming.
I don't remember one.
Yeah, and
We used to use an audio streaming service back in the day.
What was that?
Oh, I don't even remember the name. That's how long ago it was. Yeah, I don't remember what, but yeah. It's good to bring this back and welcome our guest, Josh Douglas. He's the VP of Threat Intelligence at Mimecast. Welcome, Josh.
Super happy to be here. Thank you.
Is his mic live? I don't hear Josh in my headphones.
Yeah,
Me either.
I can hear him.
Let's try that again. Josh Douglas from Mimecast is here with us.
Live. Yeah, thanks for having me here. This is awesome.
Oh, wait,
I
there we
got
go. There we go. We had to jiggle a cable.
Yeah.
The wonders of doing it live from a show.
Old school.
Oh, wait. Say something.
Is it gone again?
It's gone
Yeah,
again.
let me get
It's
it.
gone
Okay,
again.
I'll do
Hold on.
some jiggling here.
Do some jiggling. State-of-the-art technology we have here.
Analog is best.
Josh.
What?
Check.
There you go. Awesome. There you go.
Ah.
Josh, it's nice to have you on the show.
Hey, don't touch that.
Yeah, don't touch the cable.
Nobody
Nobody move.
Nobody move.
He's going to stand like this now for the next 2 hours.
Yeah. Don't touch that. You don't know what it's connected to.
And sparks are coming out.
Yep.
So, Josh, this is your first time on the show. Describe for our listeners how you get your start in information security.
Yeah, so a long time ago, I actually had my own computer consulting company, and I was running a web server for a friend, and it got compromised.
So we're talking like early 2000s.
This was probably like 97,
Oh, there you go, yeah.
98.
Nice.
Awesome.
Ooh, a 97 web server.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You instantly gained cred with our audience right there, right there.
well, it was back in the days when Bind was still having a lot of compromises and having to be DNS.
Imagine that.
Yep. So in the process, I basically did a incident response effort on the whole thing to figure out what happened, but kind of vowed from that day on I didn't want to have any more of those incidents and really got fascinated about security and protection.
It's funny you mentioned Bind. One of my first papers and analysis was on the Bind TSIG vulnerability, which was around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we talked about like safeguarding our secrets and giving exploits to people and sharing it with people that were just owning random things. Hopefully it wasn't the website you were protecting it back in the day.
And you know the sad part is I remember that paper because that was like the de facto standard on if you wanted to learn about that.
The TSIG.
This TSIG vulnerability stuff. It was
one of those
paper.
pivotal moments in my career, and all I did was describe a vulnerability, right?
Yep.
And again, hopefully it wasn't the one that.
Well, I mean, I dealt with a lot of other bind incidents after that too because it just continued. So
right.
you know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What do you do for Mimecast today?
Yeah, so I run threat intelligence collectively, and that's our product set. And I also deal with our labs team as well and facilitating the research that we do at Mimecast.
For our audience, what does Mimecast do?
So traditionally, Mimecast gained its prowess in the industry as a security email platform. We've become much more since then. We handle email, web, and awareness training collectively as a whole suite for our customers.
How important is threat intelligence to that email system today, right? Like pretty important to understand the threats.
Well, I mean, since it's still the largest attack vector, it's
Yeah.
extremely important to our customers, and obviously followed by email is web, and around all of that central component is the user that sits behind it, which is why we've also stuck with awareness training as well.
How do you collect your intelligence today?
So what's great about Mimecast is that we're a SaaS-based platform, so we get visibility across all of our customers, globally, going on 35,000 customers. So a lot of visibility around the threats that we're finding, both from our own tools around analysis, static and dynamic, but also looking at trends that are actually happening, which obviously from a threat intelligence standpoint is important when you start looking at the collective mass.
So I think this is one of those cases where folks often poo-poo or have in the past poo-pooed like software as a service stuff, but by using software as a service, those providers have an insight into so much more information across so many more verticals and so many more areas that folks are using the solution that makes you guys better at what you do from a security perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And because we have that visibility, we can also apply what we like to call community defense. So once we find something, we can spread that massively through the entire population and protect them all at once.
Awesome.
And, we even are more proactive on some of that. We recently released a blog post about a Power Query exploit, being able to use Excel and using server-side execution that can go, it can bypass sandboxing. So collectively as a company, we made sure that we protected all of our customers first and foremost, which is awesome because we could, talk about it but still protect the individuals that we care about.
I find it amazing that all the methods of communication we have today, we still largely fall back to email for that. Like we could send each other a message in 100 different applications, but email is still the crux of that.
I know, it's crazy. I mean,
why is that?
I wish I could explain it. I mean, we still use snail mail too. I mean, as
right.
mechanisms. I think it's the ability to freeform and explain yourself collectively in very long masses of information, right? Plus, you can attach additional data to it. So, I mean, it's the same thing like if you're doing snail mail, you can send somebody a package that has extra stuff in it. I think there's that ability. I think the other forms of communication out there are very short-lived and don't allow humans to basically describe themselves in the same manner.
And it may be a little tangent and maybe not necessarily related to what you're doing, but there's this one thing that I thought about, and it was in the show notes just a couple weeks ago for sort of an open discussion type of thing, is that how the hell should we be doing secure email nowadays? Like, because we can do SMIME, but how does the user know that the email that they're sending is SMIME encrypted? They don't. So we go back to something like GPG or PGP, which is potentially onerous to use, and it's my mom could have never done it. And what the hell do we do for a secure email solution? And then as someone that is interacting with these emails to do this threat intelligence type of stuff, how does that affect some of that threat intelligence?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, obviously, there's things like TLS, DMARC, all these things you combine in.
SMIME was
SMIME. I mean, you have all these collective components, but at the end of the day, it's a form of trust that happens between that communication. So one business email compromise can actually throw that entire pattern of encryption off. So basically, one company gets compromised and you have a secure communication. It doesn't matter what you have in it at that point in time.
It's a great point, Josh. Like the level of trust we have is like static, right? And we don't know that the company that we trust has been compromised, but it's just an implicit trust. Every message that comes after that, we don't know they've been compromised, so messages come in, but we trust them.
Right.
That's interesting.
Well, there was a brief foray into digital signatures for a while, and people were signing emails with these digital signatures and whatnot, which is different than S-MIME and all that. But that seems to have faded away, from popularity at this point.
I think because users' credentials can be compromised so easily.
I mean,
that even if I sign a message, that's great. But if someone compromises my account, they can sign messages as me and distribute malware. I'm sure you're seeing that.
Oh, we're absolutely seeing it. So the threat report that we just recently released shows that there's an uptick in that impersonation attack that's happening, which is obviously scary because, as we become better at detecting malicious activity, be it attachments or even URLs, at the end of the day, that trust factor is still being exploited at an alarming rate. And what's even making that more interesting is that because we're sharing things across like Office 365 and G Suite, it's becoming an implicit, trust factor that even goes further because we use it in our personal lives. Now we're using it in our business lives, and it's just inherently trusting situation that occurs, and indicators of compromise won't reveal anything in that process.
I find it interesting that the crux of the problem is that users will download the attachment and execute it. And you mentioned user awareness training. Like, how do we prevent users from executing that malicious attachment?
Yeah, so I think there's a multifaceted approach there, right? You could do it with technology, which obviously is everybody's first response, right? Which I think that we all can say that we have the best technology. I think you could deal with it by process and making it very onerous for the user, but typically they're going to bypass that.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
I think that you really have to engage the user. Short intervals, micro trainings is one thing, but we also kind of look at it from a comedy standpoint, make it interesting to them because you typically remember things that are interesting. But on top of that, having been a CISO in another organization, one of the best things you can do is always extend that fabric. Stop using the stick to beat your employees in the process and really engage them and make them part of the security team.
Right, absolutely. So you mentioned training and other things that Mimecast is doing. You've had some interesting acquisitions of technology.
Absolutely. So we've made a few acquisitions over the year. Last year, we made two key ones. One was Tata, which is the awareness training that we've folded into the Mime OS system. We also acquired Solbit, which is a fantastic static analysis engine that we were already using, but now it's collectively part of the Mimecast family, and it's been accelerating. It's that research team is what's helped us find that Power Query blog that we put out as well. So it's great acquisitions.
Nice.
Great strategy because you got the user awareness side plus the technology side, and I think what we're coming down to is you need both, right? When Larry comes in as a pen tester, right, you're going to need both users being aware that they're trying to be phished as well as technology that's looking at the payloads to identify them as malicious.
Yeah, and it's not just awareness training, as you know, about what's happening in your organization. It's also about how you're acting outside the organization too, right? Because I'm sure from a pen testing standpoint, probably the first thing you're probably going to do is find out if any credentials are already existing on the outside, specifically from a LinkedIn or a Facebook compromise. And as soon as you get one of those, boom, you're in, especially with today's, SaaS-based connected business fabric.
Yep, absolutely.
It's interesting. One of my early phishes I did as a pen tester, I was sending malicious documents to a user with context that I had gleaned from OSINT. And the first email, they opened the attachment, and they're like, oh, I couldn't open it. And I was like, oh, let me send you this other one. And they were like, oh, I couldn't open that one either. And then I sent them the third one, and they couldn't and got a shell back. Right? So, they were basically helping me test my payload. And I think it's only that combination of technology and training that can stop an attacker like myself from being successful, because we can always speculate about what software they might be running. We can always have the latest and greatest exploits or, taking advantage of configuration or whatever. But when you combine those two things together, I think that's really what stops attackers.
It definitely slows them down, right? So.
I was going to say, do you think you can actually stop them? We've been trying to stop people from doing these kind of attacks. I'm talking about pure human attacks. I was running attacks like that in 1986. People still run them today. We use the same tactics, the same techniques, and people still fall for the same things. And if I get the right spear on there, the right bait, somebody's going to go for it. And it's a volume service. I can hit everybody in the organization and get a credential. I'm not sure I can stop Paul from getting in.
You may not be able to stop them, but I think the key for at least slowing them down is elevating the game so much that the attacker has to spend more money than necessary, because it's still an economic game that occurs. Like, how much effort am I going to spend against you?
But increase my visibility as well.
Right.
The 3 attempts, right? If I did in the first one, it might fly under the radar. If I did 3 attempts, and then it depends on what I do afterwards, that behavior is also detected.
I call that the Pitbull and the Porsche. So if you're walking down the street in Manhattan, this is a joke from earlier. If you're walking down the street in Manhattan and there's 3 Carreras parked on the street and one of them's got a Pitbull in the back seat, I'm not going to steal that one. I'm going to steal the one that's got the keys to the ignition. So, I think making expensive, making the person's profile have to go up is 2 really big keys. I mean, that's what I've been advocating anyway, that you have to make it hurt. And then people will go, yeah, there's another juicy target over there. I'll go after
100%. I mean, there's 2 forms of threat intel, right? And just intelligence in general in the community, especially if you've been around the defense industry. One is I have intelligence where I'm basically looking at the attacker and their arsenal. That's traditional intelligence. I'm trying to identify every single weapon that they have, right? And I want to be able to destroy it or subvert it somehow. And then there's counter intel, basically looking at myself as if I were the attacker to basically understand my risk profile and lowering that risk profile down to a point where they can't attack me at the same level that they could before. So it really doesn't matter about the arsenal.
But what do you do when they don't care about the hurt? So I'm a nation state, I don't care, and the target is so valuable, and there is no other target. So I want that launch code, and I want it from you, and I'm a nation state. I don't care if you see that I'm doing it. I'm telling you I'm doing it. What do you do? I mean,
the counter intel approach, having dealt with this firsthand before, does work. But the problem is that as you become less attractive to attack directly, it starts to become your suppliers, your third parties.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely, Josh. Yeah.
So in fact, in the threat intelligence report that we released recently too, you'll actually see some industries specifically that are being targeted. They're directly connected across a multitude of industries. You know, you have higher education that's being attacked. Obviously, they do research for a lot of other people.
Yep.
You know, you can see all these connected fabric pieces that are occurring. And while it may seem innocuous to some people, it's in fact very sophisticated in the fact that those individuals are being attacked.
And I catch flack for this, Josh, talking about low-hanging fruit, using that analogy too much. But that's exactly what you're describing is if the organization or target, like Doug is saying you're going after, is too much of a pain in the butt to go after, I'm going to start branching out.
Yeah,
right?
this is
I mean, Stuxnet is the classic example of that, right? There's so many classic examples of the target's well hardened. Let's see who else is trusted.
Well, if you've got a Wi-Fi-enabled paper towel dispenser in the restroom that alerts the company when more paper towels are needed, and you can go in through that door because the thing is wide open, and the company just
HVAC system.
This is the sneakers attack. You cannot attack Playtronics directly, but you can attack Werner Brandes.
Yeah,
absolutely. I call this the low-hanging fruit problem.
You should wear
Doug at securityweekly.com.
You should wear tighter underwear.
I'm sorry, Josh.
No, I love it. It
was a joke from earlier. So.
Josh, I was talking to Ira Winkler, and he was describing how when we deal with social engineering and phishing, that we lean towards technology and not so much towards the actual process. In other words, my example in when I talked with Ira that I took away was, I want to get, Larry to transfer funds to me, right? And like Doug was saying, I can try multiple times. I'm going to try to get Larry to transfer those funds until it happens. However, if a policy exists that no matter who you are in the organization, there's a checklist, there's checks and balances. Before we transfer money, we do these validation steps. And Ira gave a lot of examples about how you can build processes to limit the damage from phishing attacks. Have you seen that in your training and dealing with phishing on a basis that at the end of the day, it's about creating controls and processes to prevent damage to the organization? I mean, coupled with technology, but even more so than technology, I can't transfer funds unless, like, physically someone's standing in my or there's multiple checks and balances.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is creating cyber resilience, right? Because it's not about just the technology. The technology, everybody's technology will fail at some point in time. If I spend enough money and opportunity, I'll get past it. Even with people, they're going to fail at some point in time too. Mm-hmm. So you have to combine that third layer around process. And I have seen that firsthand. I actually have seen attacks where the attacker's gone months basically interfacing with HR and basically payroll, just trying to get like a single paycheck out.
Wow.
And in the process of that, it failed multiple times, and like they're trying to bypass like the pre-note process or whatever else like that. And it's the process that basically saved that situation, because the users didn't recognize it. The technology actually did recognize it, but because it like got put into like a different folder or whatever, and people said, I don't trust this, they basically went on and continued to dig deeper. So, it's funny. Technology may find it. The person may actually subvert the technology.
Yeah.
And then basically on top of it.
And what you're describing is like trust, right?
Yes.
Like you think of, your grandma or your mother when they get a phone call of someone trying to transfer money. If the rule is, I never transfer money if someone called me, you can thwart like pretty close to 100% of attacks doing that. And that's what you're describing, right? Like the process has to be there. I also feel like the more times you can make an attacker attempt, you described months of attempts, the more it's going to raise up on our radar as security people and analysts and go, that's a bad behavior.
I totally agree with that. I think that we as security professionals sometimes come up with these grandiose like procedures and processes, and then we make it very hard for people to understand.
Yeah, exactly. Ira's point. Yes. Very good.
So that which is why we use the humor factor when we do like awareness training, because it's short, it sticks, people kind of get it, they can relate to it. I know various security trainings I've taken in the past. I sit there and I just click until I get done, right? And I didn't learn anything in the process. I felt like I knew everything, and I'm sure there's probably something I missed in the process too. So I think that we need to collectively put ourselves in the shoes of the other people on the other side and assume that they're individuals too and create our own trust factor.
Yeah. Don't you think it's still...
You need technology in this example to thwart a lot of the threats, but like Ira described that scenario where there was a lot of break-ins in a facility because they left their blinds open at night. People looked in. This actually happened to me when I worked at the university. The blinds were open. Evil, bad people saw like stuff of value, throw a rock through the window, and would steal it. And I was like, the solution to that is every night someone closes the blinds. Like that's the policy.
Or even during the day. I had a very similar situation where I was walking by and there's some blueprints out on the table, and I looked at the blueprints and I was like, oh my God, we shouldn't have these visible.
Yeah.
But along the corridor was basically windows into the conference room daily. So I mean, like we take for granted, our situation a lot of times when just a simple little thing like closing blinds could save a lot of opportunity.
But don't you
a simple analog human interactivity
or even digital too. I mean, I've been in pen tests where I gain access to the camera systems and could zoom in on documents on the desk or the whiteboard, right? It's the same kind of thing. Maybe the rule is you take your sensitive materials and out of the conference room where there's cameras at all times.
And don't you think, though, that we're still at a point where most people treat technology as a convenience item, and so they don't want it to have any added inconvenience. It's like we're still trying to push down.
A great point,
this
Doug.
ought to be the quickest, easiest way to do things, and we don't. And that's why we do it, because otherwise we don't want all this equipment. And so when we start adding steps to it, it makes it more complicated. And we've still not made that leap from this is just something to make my life easier, like a washing machine, to this is a thing that can screw me really, really bad. And it's really hard for people to get across that bridge because they're still sitting there in that, in the physical world. People still get ripped off in the physical world too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can still call somebody on the phone or say, hey, give me $50 and just rob them. And that's been going on since the dawn of time. But we've got to find a way to get people over that bridge to the other side.
I totally agree. A long time ago, earlier in my career, I sat down with a CEO. And he said that they started off selling security to the consumer. Basically, they were pitching security. But, like, one day he had an epiphany. He's like, I actually think I can make them more productive in the process. And in the process, he started selling productivity and basically, pushing all the security capability around that. It was just an added feature. So it made the individual want to do that. And I think that sometimes, to your point, like we don't make it easy enough for somebody to want to do that.
Security, but as a byproduct of a better process.
That's
is
right.
what you're describing.
Right.
Yeah. But I think that's really telling, Doug, that we look at technology as convenience, and if we apply security that makes it less convenient, we fall back to analog methods. And
Right.
I mean, I've been doing technology since I was 7 years old, right? And sometimes I resist the analog methods, but oftentimes that's the case. So we instantiated whiteboards to track a lot of our stuff. Turns out we're more productive as a result, right?
Right.
Because to do it in technology, not only is that technology hurdle, but it's a security hurdle as well, and that can hold us back.
Yeah, I think if we can get to that point where we can kind of consume that all into one,
Converge.
yeah. I think we'd be a lot better off completely across the board when it comes to security and productivity.
And securing email is one of those things that is so hard because we look at it
Brutal.
as so much of a convenience, and we all still rely on that.
Right.
Have you folks at Mimecast looked at other methods of communication and been worried about, like, when it transcends from email into other methods like Slack or Signal or all these other methods? Like, have you looked into that?
Totally. I mean, that's why we started getting into the web space, is because it's so connected.
Yeah.
And, we see it about, like I said, about resilience and making the consumer, our customers, to be more resilient and how that transcends from one to the other. I mean, we've even seen in cases where basically the attacker will try to shift from email to like SMS.
Yeah.
Right, because it becomes less of a secure channel, and they can't.
You know what I find it very
totally out
interesting
of band.
Totally out of band.
Yeah.
like from a sociology kind of perspective, people label everything as email. Like when I talk to folks that like don't do what we do in IT and technology and security, they're like, "Oh yeah, like I emailed that person." I'm like, "Did you email them or did you Facebook message them or did you send them a direct message on Twitter or text them or Slack message?" But to them, it's all email.
Right.
And I feel like the threat, what scares me the most today about email security is when the attackers make that shift you alluded to of going from email to these other messaging platforms, doing the same attacks just on a different platform.
Exactly.
That scares me to death, actually, as how productive you could be as an attacker. Larry, you're a pen tester, right? You start shifting some of your attacks from email into these other messaging systems that don't have some of those protections.
Yeah, and I think it even gets more complicated before we even jump to that complete shift of like SMS. Like, just the phone in general, the mobile phone, has made it simpler for attackers.
Yeah.
Because the ability for a user to understand what they're clicking on at that point in time becomes much more difficult. They can't hover over the URL.
That's a good point.
They don't necessarily go into the from to actually click on and see if the from is legitimately who it's from at that point in time.
Because the user interface is different.
Totally
it's
different.
harder to dig into the details to validate something. So therefore, on your phone, I get an email, just click the link.
Yeah, I used to run spear phishing test, and I found that about 50+% of the users that clicked on stuff were doing so from mobile devices.
Right.
So
sending off hours is better because they're most likely in their mobile phone, right? As an attacker, I would totally shift my time frame. Yeah.
And it's a smaller format. It's harder to see.
Exactly.
It's harder to click on things, like to check it out. Whereas you get on the computer screen. Plus, you're busy. You're walking down the street.
I was going to say you're busy, right? Like you're at dinner with your wife.
And then from a pen tester's perspective, however, when you start compromising those devices, that's now no longer a corporate-owned device. It's a personal one, and it isn't the source.
It falls out of scope very fast.
Way out of scope real fast.
Right.
So yeah, that becomes
dicey, right? Yeah.
Big time. But yeah, that's out of scope. That's a personal device and not an AT&T's network and not ours. So.
But you think about how easy that becomes too.
Yeah.
Because now if you've compromised from the mobile device, which means that you've gotten the credentials, and let's just say they have like Microsoft MFA on there or something like that. Now I just have to further the attack at that point in time to get them to click the prove button, and now I've just bypassed two-factor.
Yep.
And I think compartmentalization is becoming so much more difficult, because now I've got to have two cell phones and I got to have two laptops. And the more they do that to me, and it's back to this other problem of convenience. It's like, I have to have a separate laptop for work and a separate one for home. And, I've got two jobs, so I've got this laptop for that job and this laptop for that job. And it just gets sillier and sillier, and you start finding ways to get around that. And that's
to make it more convenient.
Right, because, it's like I just want to get my email. I would really like to be able to get all my email right here in one place. But, oh, no, that company says I got to have a separate cell phone and a separate laptop, and the email can only go there. So, well, maybe I'll just set up a forwarding rule, and it'll all forward over here. And the next thing you know, you've set yourself up for a huge problem that's going to occur. And it's really hard to enforce that stuff.
And this is why my backpack has 4 laptops in it.
Yep.
Well, yeah, that's why mine has 2, 3 laptops
But
in it.
it's even why my wife works in healthcare. She has 2 cell phones.
Yeah.
Because of exactly the situation.
But then you start finding ways around it.
Because then you got to keep 2 things charged, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting, kind of an off topic, but like we're putting an addition in our home. And I thought about like 20 years ago when you built a home, you only put so many outlets in, right? You fast forward 20 years, everyone in your house over the age of 3, right, probably has a tablet.
Dude.
Over the age of, I don't know, when you give your daughters a cell phone, right, they've got a tablet and a cell phone. If you're an adult or maybe a child at that age, you've got a laptop, a cell phone, and a tablet, all of which need to be charged.
We built a home less than 7 years ago, and what we put in was not enough.
Right.
7 years
So
ago.
you're swapping outlets in with USB ports on them.
The wainscoting is just outlets and USB ports all the way around the room.
And even better, the outlets that we have put in the last 2 years with USB ports in them don't cut it anymore because they don't have the high-powered charging and like those don't even exist. I can't buy them from the.
But I think it really speaks to messaging security, right? Like it's such a drastic change from I had one computer to I had a phone and computer to I had a tablet and computer to now there's everyone in the house.
A phone and a laptop.
Yeah, now everyone has at least 3 devices in the home, and all I need to do is be successful on one of those, and I can password spray. I can do all these other attacks, right? I think it's good for your business, actually, that people have more technology.
And we will find a way to make it convenient because that was its purpose.
Right.
And I just keep coming back to that because that's the whole point of all this stuff. It was to make your life easier and more convenient. And when we make it more complicated, we find shortcuts around
Absolutely.
all those pieces. And that's where the problems start because then, I've got all my phones connected and sharing and take it home and share all my files on SMB 1.0.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I experienced that at my own house. My son, I tried to lock down his phone one point in time, and I wasn't thinking about everything. We do the Apple sharing thing.
Yeah.
So one day I was walking by his chair, and I'm like, what's that app that you have on there? He's like, oh, I found a way to use the family sharing to go and pull your stuff down. I'm like,
yeah, because you share the apps, right?
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know I was sharing them. I'm like, we've made it convenient. So I thought I was locking something down, and he's utilizing it to make something happen for him in the process. So.
Yep. Yeah. This just happened with our 11-year-old. She's going to middle school. She's going to be potentially on the late bus, so she needs to have a phone that she can call or text us and tell us, look, I'm going to be late. Your plans have changed. We need to know where you are. And as part of that, she got a hand-me-down phone. My wife and I upgraded to iPhone 10. She got her old iPhone 8, and it has the fingerprint reader on it. And she enrolled her finger as the ability to unlock the phone, which now also unlocks iTunes and App Store.
Yeah.
And she's on the family plan, so now
she can free range.
She can free range apps. I don't think she's realized that she can do this yet, but
she
will. I know that because she still comes to me, and because she hadn't had the password. Daddy, can I have this app? She can go and browse, but she can't install anything. She needs the password. Daddy, can I have this app? And yeah, you can have that app. And I put in her password, and it comes up with a little fingerprint icon at the same time. And she's, oh, I can just use my finger to do that. I don't know how that works just yet. I don't know how that works just yet. I know how it works that you can use your fingerprint and you can buy shit on the iTunes store.
Absolutely.
And that's dangerous if you're in a situation where you've got your corporate phone or a phone that has access to corporate resources and your child gets a hold of it. Anyone who has kids knows they're going to install like whatever. Even if they're security savvy because they grew up with us. They're like, I just really want to play this game. Yeah. Right? And I'm going to install that game. Maybe that game is a Trojan Android app, for example.
Yep.
This
is why we don't use Android.
Yeah. That's a great point, actually.
Yeah. Just saying.
So new features, announcements at Black Hat from Mimecast? Any?
Yeah, so the threat report that we just released, obviously, is huge for us. It's looking over the last quarter of data, which
From 35,000 customers, right?
Yep, 35.
Awesome piece of data, right?
Yeah, awesome piece of data, great visibility about some of the things that I think we've talked about today, the industries, how attackers are basically leveraging each other in the process and the paid-for services and initiating spam to basically send out opportunistic attacks. Great read if anybody hasn't had a chance to read it. Get some visibility into what we're seeing at Mimecast. We also have announced our threat dashboard that we've launched as part of the service. It's an added feature that the consumer or customers don't have to pay for. As an addition, it comes as part of the standard offering. So we're really excited about that.
And to get a trial, it's really many different types of organizations, right? Small to very, very large.
Yeah, we have customers all across the board in various different industries globally. So it's great to sit down with every single one that I have an opportunity to, because you get to hear about new use cases and everything that they're doing. And it's always great to learn about the things that we can make our product better.
Nice.
Are there free trials on the website you can sign up for?
We do have the opportunity. So if you're looking for web, we have some free trials that are set up for that. But obviously, if you want to get in touch with anybody from our team too, we can help you out with trials around secure email gateway as well. And like I said, we also have awareness training.
Awesome. Josh, thank you so much for appearing on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. This has been a blast.
Absolutely. That will conclude this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. Larry, take us out.
Ooh, for the first time live from Vegas?
Yeah.
Over and get the hell out of here and go drink something.
Yeah.